Friends, today we are epiloguing. Yeah, that's totally a verb now. Just roll with it. But first, would you like to win a free HTDS hat? We are giving away 5 of our trucker-style History That Doesn't Suck hats. Yeah, free hat, free shipping. If that sounds good to you, we have one small favor to ask. Head to our website, historythatdoesn'tsuck.com, and take a quick survey on every podcast listener's favorite thing: ads. All right, sarcasm aside, I'm sure you know that ads are an important way for us to get the funding needed to produce the content you enjoy. And the more effective those ads are, the better. Besides that, we want you to actually enjoy listening to the ads. So help us know what kind of products make sense to tell you about. Once again, you can find the survey on our website or keep your eyes peeled for it on our social media. Thank you so much, and good luck winning one of the hats. Welcome to History That Doesn't Suck. I'm your professor, Greg Jackson, and today we are epiloguing. So here I am with the crew, Josh, CL.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, guys.
And let's go ahead and dive into the corrections, as we like to call it, which apparently is just things that Greg can't pronounce. And I love it. Hopefully we stay there. Let's keep living there. It's a good place.
Which, give yourself some credit. You know, there's not that many this time around.
No. Yeah, it's lessened. I mean, I look forward to the barrage of emails that'll come later about things that are in this episode, and we'll perpetually go back. But that's okay. I always want to hear from people. If I mispronounce your hometown, please let me know.
And then upload a video on YouTube so that next time we can get it right.
Exactly.
Yeah, in fact, you know what? Do us a solid right now. You live in some obscure place that we might mention later, and it's spelled in English, but of course it has a French pronunciation because you live in Louisiana, or has a Spanish,
or the other way around,
or yes, or whatever indigenous language is influencing it, and etc. By all means, upload that YouTube video now so that I can look it up later. Appreciate that. But at any rate, we will go ahead and we'll do that. We'll get to some emails, and then we'll get into connecting big picture stuff for this last volume, right? Okay, so the corrections. It's just one, right?
Yeah, this time.
Excellent. So I am truly saddened to acknowledge this one because it has a French pronunciation. And
yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
The one time that you don't go for it.
I know, right? Like the singular time. I'm probably too French pronunciation happy, if anything. Mm-hmm. But it is not Mobile, Alabama. It's Mobile, Alabama. I wish I could remember. I apologize to the listener. By all means, shoot me an email or tweet. I'll acknowledge you later. But someone from the region reached out to me on Twitter and mentioned that it's not Mobile, and we're totally going to take a shot at CL's husband for this.
Yeah, no, he got it really wrong, guys. Those Texans, it turns out they're not right about everything.
With nothing but love to our Texas listeners.
I'm just going to throw all Texans under the bus as I throw my husband under the bus.
Sure, because it makes it smoother than throwing your husband under the bus. But hey, you know what? No, it's fine. Throw him under the bus. But that said, joking aside, the buck stops here, right? I'm at the mic, so if I choose to lean upon your husband's suggested pronunciation, that's on
you.
me.
Yeah,
it's on me. So
yeah, but thanks for correcting us, and we will get it right from here on out. It's Mobile.
It is indeed Mobile. So Mobile, Alabama. Someone can tell me later that I didn't pronounce Alabama right. So moving along.
Yeah, to our fan mail.
Yes. Today we're just going to acknowledge the Kens.
The Kens.
Yeah.
Who are awesome and send us great stories.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Really good.
So let's first go with Kenny from Lawrence, Kansas. He simply expressed his appreciation that we got Lawrence on the History That Doesn't Suck map.
Yeah. He really liked the Bleeding Kansas episode, and he talked about how he's really proud of his hometown of Lawrence and really proud of its anti-slavery history. And
I got the impression that he seemed to be more or less speaking for, well, kind of the attitude there, right? That there are a lot.
That was the sentiment he was kind of saying.
That's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
So glad to know that Lawrence, Kansas is up on its
repping.
Yeah, it's repping its history.
That's right.
Yeah, and this one makes the cut. We're definitely not going to go through all the emails that we've gotten. We're keeping it pretty trim this time around. But this one certainly makes the cut because, Ken, God bless you, sir. You made me laugh my head off as I sat in a painful layover in an airport. We'll just leave off which one it is. Chicago. And so Ken in Minnesota, he's involved in law enforcement. He's a big fan of the podcast. And apparently when he has to arrest someone, he doesn't turn off the podcast.
And they just get to listen along with him.
That's right.
On the ride down to,
I don't know. It was a long layover. I'd had 2 flights before, one ahead of me. Maybe I was in such a state of delirium. It was funnier than it is, but
I think it's a great story. I love it so much.
Okay, I'm not nuts here. I don't know. I'd never really thought about an officer driving his patrol car and in the back is someone who's just been picked up for
who knows what.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and say something innocuous because the story gets less funny if it's something serious, right? Yeah. So, some kids tagging or whatever. Yeah. And well, now you're going to learn all about Jefferson's presidency or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Right?
Andrew Jackson, you guys are going to be experts by the time we get.
That's right. Ken, I hope you sometimes take the long route to the to the station.
30 minutes just circling the block.
You need this one. All right. We'll leave it there, though.
Yeah. So thanks, Kens, for the emails.
Yes.
We appreciate them.
They're really great.
Thanks to whoever that was, again, on Twitter.
Yeah, reach out. Let us know. We'll give you a shout out.
Keep letting me know how many things I'm not pronouncing correctly. It's great. I don't mind if someone wants to send that email saying, hey, Greg, really respect the way that you have good diction and switch between French and Spanish and all these names that are in America's
So are you fishing for a compliment there, Greg?
I think I'm being far more blatant than fishing, Ciel.
Yeah.
But, that's okay.
Throwing a net out and just raking in whatever you can.
It's all right. Look, when I grade my students' papers, I do try to remember to write in like, hey, this was good here. But it's what you do, right?
Yeah. The bad.
Yeah. Here's everything you need to fix. Hand it back. And try to be better than that. It's fine. That's how it is. Joking aside, look, my mom will send me the complimentary email, so you don't need to worry about it. Please do keep letting us know when I mispronounce your hometown or whatever.
Or your ancestor or who.
Yes, your ancestor's name. Yep, throw back to Chris there. Mm-hmm. Okay, but enough on that. Let's get to the big overview of this volume.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think a lot of people were thinking, awesome, time to get to the Civil War. And then we spent...
And then we didn't.
8 episodes covering the causes of the Civil War.
But guess what's coming?
Yep. Now we're there. We're just, months out. And I think that in part from some of the emails that we were getting from listeners, there was definitely some like, oh yeah,
getting in the Civil War.
It's time for the Civil War.
Yeah. Here we go. Fort Sumter. La Amistad. Solomon Northup.
Right.
Seneca Falls.
Which, I guess now I'm getting super theoretical here. We didn't have to per se tell some of these specific stories, but they're good stories. I think they're important stories. They help give us a better understanding of the social milieu. There we go. Got some French in there.
Exactly.
I kept it pretty American on the pronunciation.
No, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
People will know what you said.
Yeah. But these stories, they do build a better, larger foundation for understanding the many social issues that are at play in the 1850s, just how divisive, or rather, divisive is definitely an accurate word, but to a head, the issues of slavery, that they're coming to a head.
Yes. Right. Because it's been divisive all along. But these things start to build as we start to add more states to the nation and add more territories to the nation. And then,
Well, and we have more Americans, they're questioning and thinking deeper in a way about ideas that are germane to the founding of the United States. And we talk about all men created equal. And
what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
So you see it explored at Seneca Falls, and you see it explored with, Frederick Douglass and the abolitionist movement. And you see these ideas of What does all men created equal mean? Is that white men? Is that white landowning men? Or could it be broader than that?
And and when we say men, are we doing that in that old mankind sort of term that's definitely falling out of usage in the 21st century? I think more and more, especially scholars, are shifting to
men and women.
Yeah, men and women, humanity, right? Terms that you don't have to go back and explain. Like, no, we really mean everyone. Man, but we totally mean everyone.
Right.
Right. But these are issues that are being explored and debated and thought through in the, early to mid 19th century.
I think that's why we did it. I think that's why we had to have this build up to the Civil War, because we wanted to paint the picture of all these things coming to a head, the background, to add more gravitas to what is about to go down in the Civil War, and even more vitriolic that the things are going to get as we hit into the Civil War. It doesn't have as much hit if you don't understand all that background.
Yeah, and all that buildup and all the different topics that are being discussed. And even though, for instance, women's rights is going to be a much longer path, it's not going to come to fruition soon. It's still got a few decades, even half a century before we get to really percolating at the national level. We can see these roots, all these ideas, these concepts of thinking through these. Well, I'm getting a little circular, but you get my point.
Yeah. You can see all of these people trying to explore what this could look like, and so you've got your outliers like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who are like, no, women are equal to men. Women should be able to own property and vote. And then, but you have a spectrum along all of these different social issues. And like you were saying, Josh, if you don't understand that spectrum of ideas with social issues and political issues, then when it comes time that those states secede, that you've got southern states seceding, you won't understand the ideas as much. So that's why we gave our listeners this great background on all of these complex issues and where people stand on them.
Well, in some of these that we'll swing back to later as well, whether you're talking about temperance or we are talking about women getting the vote, I think that those stories will be, I don't want them to feel rushed. More than not feel rushed. I want them to be rushed. So when we do get to the 20th century and, we're talking about prohibition, well, listeners will be able to reflect back on, right, this has been, we've seen the stepping stones that's been leading the United States in this direction for decades.
Yeah. And when you see which we'll cover a little bit when we get to the Civil War, when you see the women's rights movement growing and you see the respect that women get for the roles that they play in the war, especially in the medical professions, then it makes a little more sense. Oh yeah, but that harkens back to the arguments that were being made at Seneca Falls. This isn't the first time women have demanded this kind of respect and equality. So then and we'll just continue to build from there all the way. You're right, into the 20th and 21st century.
So all that said, I think we should kind of go through some of the legislation though that's really moving us towards the Civil War.
Yeah.
And, let's connect some of the bigger dots. So, just in case anyone's kind of gotten lost along the way, we'll take ourselves through the legislation.
Yeah, good idea.
Let's do it.
Okay. I think first of all, we need to remember the Missouri Compromise of 1820.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, that was, as it elicited calls of, doughface and whatnot, and resulted in a lot of people losing office.
Yeah. For being willing to fight for a compromise and vote for a compromise. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the massive, super strong Band-Aid that held a fissure that was very much already there. It's in place. It's not like
it's not like it was created while it was happening.
Yeah. I mean, that last decade leading up to the Civil War, the 1850s. Oof, it's the fissure's pretty deep.
Yeah,
but it has been there. So that compromise, just to remind everyone, we had parallel 3630. Everything that all U.S. territory
below
it would be slave territory, and with, of course, the exception of bringing in Missouri as a slave state. But then everything north of it, and the territory we're talking about at this point is the territory that's been acquired through the 17 years, semi-recent Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah. Right.
And so this, to me, is a crucial thing to see, is that the slavery conundrum, which in a way was kind of settled uncomfortably in the Constitution with it being permitted as a constitutionally permitted thing.
Yes, it's written into it.
It was every time more territory was acquired, and there had to be more discussion of, well, is this going to be free or slave area? That's what always kicked up,
the discussion,
the
debate, or
yeah. So we saw that with the acquisition of Louisiana Territory. The Band-Aid kind of worked, but then what happens?
We go to war with Mexico, and we get a bunch of new land where slavery has not been allowed because Mexico had abolished slavery before the war. So then you've got people who say, okay, well, that's easy. Just take that 3630 and extend it right to the ocean. Yep. No problem. And then you've got people who already think, well, this was a land grab for slaveholders. Yep. And, that 3630 line really only applied to the Louisiana Purchase. And let's dial it back. No slavery.
Well, and you're going to have, we didn't touch on this, and but even climate, ecological factors, the climate, you're not setting up a cotton plantation in, Phoenix, Arizona.
No, you are not.
That's just not. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm breaking the heart of any would-be cotton farmer out there who had ambitions to move to the Southwest, but don't get that loan just yet. And by the way, if you find a bank that's willing to give you a loan for that, don't trust that bank with anything. Yeah, they're going under pretty quick.
Nope.
Not the sharpest tools there.
Yeah. So. I mean, there are people who make the argument when they get to California, oh, yeah, I could have the slaves work the mines for me, right? And we brought that up with the gold rush, right? But no, for the most part, the climates and the ecology of the territory that is acquired from Mexico would not work well for the plantation.
Well, and it is, I think, somewhat fair to point out that while Mexico had abolished slavery, some of its labor practices could get pretty dicey, but nonetheless, with it at least being technically,
they did not have a 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and there's a lot of mistreatments starting with indigenous people as well.
Well, and we touched on that.
Oh, we did. We kind of talked on that.
But that's kind of
what you're getting at.
Yeah. It's I think it's worth at least pointing out. But it just how do you go into these territories where under Mexico there's no slavery, and now you're going to say, well, but now there will be.
Right.
It's.
Well, and all of the settlers who are already in California by the time that land is acquired didn't bring slaves with them, and it's tricky. It's tricky. Hence, you get the Compromise of 1850.
Yes,
which tries to deal with all of this mess. It tries to. It tries really hard.
It really does.
Yep. Henry Clay gives up his career over it, man.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, he really does. So it's months and months and months of anguish to get that compromise through. And in the end, I don't think the Compromise of 1850 is as effective as the Compromise of 1820.
No, well, I mean, it's basically just downhill, perpetually
from there,
from the Missouri Compromise, getting to the Compromise of 1850, which way less sexy name, by the way.
Oh,
I don't know. Like, let's just throw the year on it. This is when we compromised, guys. It was 1850. We made a compromise.
Done.
Yep.
And so California does come in as a free state. Mm-hmm. And in a way, we kind of start touching on some of the things that we're going to see 4 years later. There's a little bit of this. Well, we're gonna let Utah territory and
New Mexico territory.
They can make up their own mind.
Yeah, we'll let the people decide.
That's right.
And it sounds like a great idea.
But yeah.
So
Kansas.
Yeah. So this amazing compromise makes it a whopping 4 years before we get to Kansas, Nebraska. That act, the Kansas, Nebraska Act.
Not that we're blaming Kansas and Nebraska for
no.
Way to go, Kansas, Nebraska.
Yeah.
You just started.
I just think I'm caught up still maybe on the compromise that go
ahead.
That I'm trying to not make a statement, present day statement per se on politics, but isn't it interesting that people are spending months and months and months over a compromise? Yeah. Right? Not necessarily, in part also fighting months and months to not necessarily just prove my side and 100% this is my side, but it's months and months, and it's partly that too, don't get me wrong, but it's months and months of compromise as well.
Yeah. And of figuring out what each side needs and trying to bring it to the table.
Yeah. And like Greg said, it only lasts 4 years.
Yep.
But that effort is there.
Mm-hmm. Well, we see it in a number of people. I mean, Henry Clay basically dies over, well, not like physically dies, but, his career dies over it. Right. But then you have other people that, and I do feel like the Civil War, it's really propelled by people who don't, who are just really looking to push
their agenda.
I mean, yeah. So I think of the Supreme Court Justice, Taney.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about just pushing us right to the brink when he just tries to, essentially railroad slavery through the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just says, I know we've tried this compromise. I know we've tried this popular sovereignty idea. I don't like it. And here's my agenda. And I'm going to find a legal way to push it through.
Yeah.
In the worst Supreme Court decision ever.
Yep. I mean, really.
Oh, no, really? I'm not saying wow as in like, I disagree with you. It's wow just like, that's a huge statement.
It's a big statement, but there are a fair amount of legal minds.
That's a fair, it is a fair statement. I mean, and talk about that's a legacy you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at what I passed when I was seated.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some other terrible Supreme Court decisions out there.
Oh, yeah. There's some close seconds and thirds.
Yeah. But to hold the top seat, that's something to
so
hang your head over and be ashamed.
So instead of being remembered as the Supreme Court justice that swears in Lincoln as president, he's remembered as the Supreme Court justice who writes Dred Scott versus Sanford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of a bummer of a way to go out.
So CL, Josh, and I want to chat it up a bit about our experience with the Great Courses Plus.
Yep.
Look, I've already told you guys before. The app, it's the way to go. If you have a long commute like I do, which is 35 minutes, dreadful 35 minutes every day, it's the best way to do it. I just listen through the app. It's the way to go. CL, aren't you listening to something that's super interesting right now, by the way?
Yeah, I just picked up a new. So I've been listening to several different courses, but I just started this new one.
Yeah, you crank through those.
I really do. Yeah, it's the best way to get through long errand running, kid dropping off, which is half of my life. So I just previewed this new course that's about to drop. It's called The Real History of Secret Societies, and it's been created in partnership with the History Network. The teacher, Dr. Richard Spence, does a great job of sorting reality from myths and conspiracies and takes a deep dive into the brotherhoods and orders and cults, the ones we all know, like the Illuminati, the Knights Templar, even Japan's Black Dragons. It's a fascinating topic. I can't wait to delve into it with Dr. Spence.
And I'll just remind everyone that this is only one example of many various courses you can listen to. I'm upping my chess game and have other courses queued up. One's on probability, another's on game theory, and still another is a course called Inventions That Changed the World. You really can stream a course on just about anything taught by the best minds at the best institutions in any given field. So I'll encourage you to take a page out of our book and give the Great Courses Plus a go. You can get a month of completely free, unlimited access by signing up at the following website, thegreatcoursesplus.com/HTDS. Just the initials of the show. Make sure you use the HTDS URL so that you receive your free month of the Great Courses Plus. And you'll also be shown some love for history that doesn't suck. So again, that URL is thegreatcoursesplus.com/HTDS.
And now back to the epilogue.
So we've got that Dred Scott decision. We've got the Kansas Nebraska Act where Stephen Douglas is saying, we'll throw it to the people, which kind of in a way is opening it up to being anywhere, especially with the way that interprets fugitives, the way that slaves should be treated if they're taken by an owner from a slave state into free territory. Well, clearly per this case, they can't sue. They won't actually have their freedom, even though that reverses
decades of precedent.
Yeah.
So in a way, many Northerners and anti-slavery supporters, especially abolitionists, they're looking at this going, I mean, you basically just legalize slavery everywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so, of course, you can see where that is very much going to propel the country to
do some crazy stuff.
And, we're already seeing, I think, we got to remember, we're also already seeing violence in Congress.
Yes.
So it's not like, as we are about to start the actual Civil War, it's not like this is some out of the blue shots are finally being fired. I mean, Kansas, to John Brown, basically anywhere John Brown goes.
Yeah. Let's just follow John Brown around, see the violence that crops up after him.
Right. So I'd just like to be remembered as the guy that just no matter where you go incites violence. Yeah. I mean, I know that's not his whole life, but
no. And well, let's circle back to that, but talk about a complicated figure,
yes.
with such a laudable and such a difficult, though at the same time, history.
Yeah, and his legacies. It's interesting because for anybody who is looking at the abolition
what
cause,
the hell? Let's go there now. Let's just do this.
Right? So, anybody who's looking at the abolitionists or looking to be against slavery, the problem is his methods are so violent and deadly. I mean, you have a hard time getting behind that and supporting that, even if you think his cause is just.
Yeah,
it's hard to say someone who murders people in cold blood in the middle of the night in front of their families is a hero.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. Well, when you put it that way,
way to lay it out there on the table, CO.
And yet, I mean, he's seen what I don't know. I mean,
I see where you're going.
Yeah.
He's seen the horrible ethics of slavery.
Well, that you've got so many generations. I mean, going back to the Constitution itself, right? Americans have been trying to navigate,
kind of flesh out.
Well, yeah, this frankly god-awful practice of slavery that's so contradictory to the Declaration of Independence, as Abraham Lincoln pointed out, as Stephen Douglas tried to argue it was not. They've been trying to have a non-violent means of ending this thing since the beginning.
I mean, that's what the international slave trade ban was in 1808.
And everyone, pat themselves, and I don't mean this
farther back than that, 3/5 compromise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And all these thoughts of like, okay, I mean, the economy's changing in the mid-Atlantic, or, farmland's getting worn out. Slavery's going to die on its own. Oh, okay, it didn't die. We'll do an international slave ban. And okay, oh crap, that didn't do it. All right, well, Missouri Compromise, and maybe this will dial back. So you can see all these efforts to peacefully end this, erroneous practice, this sin. And by the time we get to John Brown, especially as Senator, saying that guy's name right without the script in front of me, Atchison.
Yeah, Atchison. Davy Atchison from Missouri.
Yeah. Here's this guy who's, his comment, we're going to Mormonize the abolitionists, right? Like he's violently imposing slavery on Kansas. And John sees, okay, well, fire with fire. Yeah. You're going to violently impose slavery on developing states.
We're going to violently fight back.
Yeah. And meanwhile, in Congress, here you've got Preston Brooks literally almost beating to death, Senator Sumner from Massachusetts. It's I think it. I don't know. I'm not one who likes violence or war. As I sit back and try and think, what are ways that slavery could have ended, that the United States could have moved forward without going to that place. I can't think of one.
Like you have to put,
which I hate to say.
Yeah,
I hate to acknowledge, but it just seems like it.
It was on that track from maybe not the beginning, but
so many other things were tried and they didn't work.
Yeah.
So many compromises. And like we just detailed out, like all that legislation that was tried to, okay, well, maybe if we contain it, okay, well, maybe if we, But
that's the thing. We're about to come to serious mass violence.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and this is what so many generations of Americans were trying to avoid, right?
Yeah.
A war of this magnitude that is going to just obliterate the United States in so many ways.
Right.
You know, and to this day, in many ways, has still left scar tissue in our national fabric.
Oh, definitely.
Right. And that was the goal, is to avoid that. And I'm sure, you know, some had to be in the North and looking at how, again, something that's important for us to remember, the North practiced slavery too, but slavery was able to come to a close peacefully up there. Of course, it's because it wasn't economically viable. It's not that Northerners are magically more moral than Southerners.
Yeah, or less racist or anything like that.
Yeah, no. And as we've seen, right, with the settling of Oregon to Illinois, all of these awful laws, or, you know, in the Illinois state constitution, right? Sure. Is slavery being practiced there? Well, no, but black settlers are literally banned from the state.
Right.
You know, so it's a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah. So that's basically what we covered for an entire volume, was the mess that everyone was trying to avoid with bloodshed. With John Brown just went, you know, I'm just not going to avoid bloodshed anymore. I'm just going to go straight for it.
But, you know, and the thing that, you know, it sat with me almost like a ghost for days after recording, and it still, you know, hits me from time to time, is that note he wrote and handed to the guard on his way out to the execution. Mm-hmm. You know, that this is a guy who, yes, was willing to resort to violence, but it's not like he was some sort of sociopath who saw it. Yeah, who wanted it. He was just someone who takes a broadsword to farmers. You know, was someone who saw that this is the point that basically anti-slavery movement, abolitionism, to be more precise, was I guess going to have to go to. I mean, when even Frederick Douglass is like, okay, I got to acknowledge that, like
you're going a little far there.
Oh no. Well, he's not down with it, but he eventually comes around, kind of says, yeah,
we're getting to that point.
Yeah, we're going to have to draw blood.
Yeah,
I guess that's true.
You know, so when even Frederick's going there, that's where, you know, you kind of have to pause and go, sheesh.
Yeah. Well, and when you've got Southerners who are going there as well, because remember that we talked about John C. Calhoun, the senator from South Carolina.
Yep.
And he predicts on his deathbed that it will come to war. It will come to war within 3 presidential elections, he says, and it will be because someone who is anti-slavery comes to office. And that's what he predicts, and that's what he sees. And that is exactly what happens.
Nails it. Yeah. Lincoln's elected, boom.
Lincoln is elected. South Carolina secedes a month later.
Yep.
We're out.
And then it's basically just dominoes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got those 7 states that we talked about in the last episode of this volume. You've got those 7 states that follow, and it's all the lower ones. So it's Texas, all the way across the Gulf Coast, all the way to Florida, and then South Carolina is your last one. Well, it's your first one.
First one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So there you go.
Exactly. Let's bring scriptural references into it. But yeah, no, John C. Calhoun gets it right away. So you've got Northerners who see it's just going to have to come to bloodshed. And you've got Southerners who are already predicting that there's just not going to be a peaceful way to resolve this conflict.
And we're going to hit the Civil War.
There we are.
And there we are with a few trapped soldiers at Fort Sumter getting fired on. It's crazy.
Jeez.
It's boom.
I feel like you have to insert like a song right here. Yeah. It's going down for real.
You want to make it into a music video, Josh?
Because I mean, I'm not making light of it because it's very serious. I still think it holds... Totally correct me if I'm wrong. Civil War holds the stat.
Don't worry, we will.
For the highest American death count because they're all American. To date, actually, I think I could be wrong on this stat, but I'm pretty sure the Civil War holds the highest death
for
count.
the most Americans killed in a single war.
Yep.
Right? I'm pretty sure you're right about that, Greg. Do you know that off the top of your head?
Why you gotta put me on the spot with numbers like that?
Someone can correct me and I'll look it up, but I'm almost positive.
I
shouldn't, and I'm pointing out it's death. Not
casualty, not injury,
because people get that messed up with World War II as well.
Yeah.
People will say like, 75 million casualties. So yeah, we're about to hit some heavy stuff.
Yeah, we definitely are. And it's just watching the South secede and watching the different reactions in the North. Like, well, some people are like, let him go. We don't need to fight about it. Just let him go. It's going to be fine. And other people are, no, you can't leave. And the different arguments against it, I think, are really interesting. Those different, again, coming back to people are complex. Nobody fits in a box, right? There's a ton of different reactions to watching the South leave. As to whether or not it's okay. And, like we said, there's those lower 7, and then you've got upper South states that sit there, what should we do? And
yeah.
Talk about an interesting, almost man in the high castle scenario. If you were to think back, like, what would have happened if we would have let him go?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What would we look like now?
Mm-hmm.
Or not look like now?
Or,
that
is an interesting thing to think about.
I just don't think it could have happened because, you would have had to have worked out some sort of treaty on what happens with U.S. territory.
Mm-hmm. What happens with federal property?
Have an equal claim. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think you would have had conflict all the way across. You basically would have just had, the United States of America, the Confederate States of America.
And it would have been probably just constant warfare.
War. The moment that this, that the Confederate States are getting set up, war's coming. There is no way around that.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. So this doesn't end up in the script anyway, but there are Southerners who honestly think, don't worry, it's a peaceful revolution, guys. We're just going to walk away. They genuinely think that. It's not coming to bloodshed. Now, don't get me wrong. Most Southerners don't think that.
Right.
Jefferson Davis is like, no, I'm willing to throw down. It's going to be fine. But there are some who are genuinely think this is going to be a peaceful revolution. They will just leave. And, looking back at 1776, I don't know why they, wouldn't think that, right? Because that was a very peaceful just leaving England. They just let us go.
That was so chill.
Yeah. And there was an ocean between us at that stage of the game.
Yeah, that's
this
true.
Is, we're talking like just, the next state up.
And talk about a different status. Colonies of small colonies
of a world empire
versus integral pieces of the country.
Half a country and
sure.
integral part of the economy.
But no problem.
And I'm not trying to how do I say this? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the way to say
You're all sorts of pauses tonight. What you got?
Yeah. This is a huge part of their economy, and I know we're going to get into this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're basically asking us to completely uproot what makes these states thrive,
and that's where these states are ready and willing to go to war.
To go to war, right?
Yeah.
And it's where we're getting a lot better in the historical profession and in the American dialogue at acknowledging slavery's kind of being the centerpiece of the war. This is where it does get framed or couched in other terms.
I guess I'm just trying to point out that it's not completely a moral point for them, right? Slavery, good or bad. There's way more complex factors that are going on.
Yeah,
they see the dollar signs.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And there are people who argue, using Christianity to back them up. Slavery is right, and we are 100% justified.
Yeah,
stop telling us it's wrong.
It's in the Bible.
Yeah, it's in, and there are, dozens of quotes from preachers and from politicians who say slavery is right and stop telling us it's wrong. We are sick and tired of hearing those abolitionist moral arguments. That's ridiculous. But yes, at the end of the day, the people who secede in South Carolina are the top tier of the economy. 90% of the secessionists who signed the secession order in South Carolina own slaves. 90% of the people who do that. And it's because they see the dollar signs, like you said,
They're
right?
attached.
Yep. They are attached and they are not willing to let that go. And they are willing to not send themselves. They're a bunch of old dudes. But, their kids and grandkids to war for that piece of the economic pie.
Yep.
Well, and we will, as we've done with U.S. history right up to this point. We're going to continue to give all the nuance and complexity. I mean, we're not going to shy away from acknowledging what I think everyone's probably seen the last few episodes. Slavery is the centerpiece of this war.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we will, as we don't shy away from straight up facts, we're going to give the nuance, and that includes what various groups think, and view themselves as fighting for,
right?
And that just as you shouldn't boil this down to the righteous armies of the North fighting the evil armies of the South, because even these Northern soldiers, they're fighting
conflicted wars too.
Well, yeah,
inside themselves with
and they're not
family members on both sides.
Yes, yeah, I mean that happens, and it's not like Union troops are all marching off because they feel so strongly that they need to end slavery, and like I wish I'd love it if that were the case, but it wasn't.
No.
So, we're going to get into all of these reasons. You
said it perfect.
Well, thank you.
That's what I was trying to say.
You're welcome, Josh.
Thank you. No, really.
So, yeah, I mean, because that's what we're about, right? We want to tell the full story. We want to tell everyone's story.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's ugly, and sometimes it's something to be proud of. Now, before we go on, I want to tell you about the continuing education programs at University of California, Irvine, or UCI. Since 1962, this top 50 school has been providing learning pathways for those looking to step up their career or just learn more. And you can take advantage of UCI's division of continuing education programs from anywhere. In fact, they have over 30,000 people enrolled from all over the world right now. So whether you're listening to us in the US or on the other side of the world, like those of you in Britain, what up? You can enroll in any courses, certificates, or specialized studies programs that interest you or could further your career. And when I say any course, I do mean just about any. They have over 60 convenient certificates and specialized programs specifically designed for working professionals. So no need to call it quits on the day job while you hone your craft. I also love that they have a number of courses that are 100% online. Through UCI's division of continuing education, you can enjoy the convenience and flexibility of real immersive online classrooms that'll offer you a collaborative learning experience with your fellow students. Fall classes will be here before you know it, and registration is already open. Visit ce.uci.edu/history-doesn't-suck and enter HTDS for 15% off one course. That's ce.uci.edu/history-doesn't-suck. And again, enter HTDS when prompted to get 15% off one course. This offer is only valid until December 31st, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. And now, back to the epilogue. And, on that, something to be proud of. I think that this might even be a good note to end on. I'd mentioned this earlier before we got rolling, and I want to, I do just want to point out that, we're clearly dealing with some of the most uncomfortable parts of American history.
Yes.
Which, hey, it's not fun. It needs to be done.
Yeah. People need the information. We need to discuss it.
But, it's also, is heartening the word I want? As we've been going through these episodes, from the Seneca Falls Convention to John Brown, right before they move in on Harper's Ferry. See how I'm spacing one other. What was it?
Oh, well, no, you're not. No, you're not spacing one other.
But our foundational documents, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, that I feel like in many ways, and here I'll be the sappy patriot that I can be at times, even through acknowledging some very painful things. Because I feel like that's what it really means to actually care about and love your country. It's not just saying, look how amazing we are. It's
recognizing all your black eyes.
And being able to face down your demons. But seeing these people who are willing to push America to a better place, looking back to those documents and being able to see the germ of greater things,
right?
Than, that generation was able to write words that spoke to a level that they themselves could not achieve.
Right. Yeah. So when they say, all men are created equal, and then Elizabeth Cady Stanton says, yes, all men and women.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
come on, that's goosebumps, isn't it?
It is. For sure. It's amazing.
And,
yeah.
In some ways, I kind of look back on the founders and I see like the very, out of shape, not taking good care of themselves person who's kind of looked in the mirror and said, it's time to diet and exercise. And in this personification of America, I feel like that's what we see by and large through U.S. history. I mean, and sometimes America falls off the diet, stops working out, puts back on a
couple pounds.
Pounds, yeah. But by and large kind of struggles forward. And, I don't know. I think that it's, I guess that's just the way I see it. And it's the way I like to think through it, is that we've come a long way.
Yeah.
We continue to be able to see in those founding documents, that ideal that we strive for, even today. We're still striving for it, and trying to be a more perfect union. That even they saw it, right? They didn't say that they were forming a perfect union, but a more perfect union.
Right, right. And it's really cool to acknowledge the contributions of the men and women of these pretty difficult years before the Civil War in really working toward perfecting, getting closer to those ideals,
building on that foundation. Maybe in some ways that even the people who built the foundation wouldn't have, seen or appreciated.
Yeah.
Some of them did. Some of them did. I can think back on a number of those of our founders who, who did hate slavery or, wanted to see a more inclusive environment. And at any rate, they're beautiful words, they're beautiful ideals. And it's as painful as it is to see them not lived up to. At least there's the beauty of seeing others from, even if it's complicated with John Brown, I don't know how much I can condone the approach. To Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Frederick Douglass, and so on, as they make those words shift just a little bit further, towards reality.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So before we end, we want to add a new segment, shall we say, right, to the epilogue, as we're thinking and evolving, trying to figure out what we're doing. A fourth time around, we're starting to get the hang of this. Let's just go through very briefly the hardest things about this volume for each of us.
Yeah.
Because, we each have a different perspective on what was the hardest thing.
We do.
During this volume for us.
Absolutely. Josh?
Do you want me to start?
You want to start this bad boy off?
Yeah, man, the hardest thing for me this volume, constantly editing out Greg mispronouncing Potomac.
I have some words for you. You ready to use that bleep of yours? You son.
Yeah. Oh no! I mean, it was kind of funny to hear that over and over and over and over. And there were some. In all seriousness, there were some really tricky sound effects this volume.
Yeah, every time Josh looks at a script and he sees all the sound effects that Greg and I have come up with.
What you say when you look at the script?
Yeah, when I see the script and I see... So everybody kind of knows background, the script, we highlight certain sections, and anything that's a sound effect is highlighted in orange. So if I'm going through a script when we're recording and I see just...
Nothing but orange.
Not even, a disregard for just straight orange everywhere. I know it's going to be rough editing for the next
just
little
random
and that I probably wrote that section.
One, right?
Yeah, I know. I can see this part yells like orange,
3 paragraphs later, orange.
Greg is like, okay, we got orange, and new paragraph, orange.
Though I have to say, Ciel's stepping it up.
I am.
Yeah, I was proud of you.
Yeah.
Which episode was that?
I don't even remember. Yeah,
were you flippant with your orange?
And I
effects?
just kept inventing new things that Josh could certainly find a sound effect for. Right? I think the last one was find Dixie and let's have that play.
Yeah.
That was good.
And I think I made a comment like, "Man, Greg, like you got a lot of sound effects in this section here," and you're like, "Yeah, CL wrote that." I was like, "Oh, I'm not used to that."
Hey, but I love that we're so merged at this point.
I know. Josh can't even tell when we're trying to torture him.
That's right.
No, I mean...
Because it's a team effort now, Josh.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. Hey, I actually, though, let me say compliments to you, sir. I think it was the last episode, 44, Abraham Lincoln becomes president of, what do we call it? The divided states. So good. Dude, that opening was riddled with sound. Oh, this was one. I don't remember if it was me or it was you. No, that was definitely me. That's right. Find a sound effect for aiming a cannon.
Yes. Right? You're like, aiming cannon. I was like, what?
I'm sorry. But you did it. Mm-hmm. Way to be.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, I say it as a difficult thing because it is, right? That's probably one of the most difficult parts of editing the show, but it's also my pleasure. You know, I enjoy it. So.
And we thank you.
I hope everyone else enjoys it too.
So. I think they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. My turn.
Go for it.
So the most difficult thing for me, and of course, I sit in a library and read books and write scripts and condense really boring books into something I hope that's entertaining. I hope our listeners find it entertaining. But this past episode or this past volume, when we did Solomon Northup, there's a scene in his book where he describes a fellow slave being sold away from her child. And we, as the readers, know, and Solomon knows because he's writing from remembrance and he knows what's happened to this girl. We know that she is eventually going to be sold as a fancy girl. And I thought I'd left fancy girls behind with episode 20, that we wouldn't be, touching, or 19, 20, anyway.
Around 20, ballpark it.
That we wouldn't be discussing that anymore.
Right.
But no, we were. And so I sat at my computer desk, and in my office, we have a U shape of desks. And so my son is sitting behind me on his computer, and I'm sitting at my computer sobbing, reading this girl's story of being sold away from her mother, knowing what her fate will be. And my son turns around and is like, "Mom,
are you okay?
Are you okay?" He's 13, so he was a little like, "What's happening right now?" I told him to leave me alone and bring me some Kleenex, because I'm a good mom. Yeah, no, that was definitely the hardest thing to read and the hardest thing to write, for sure, of anything in this. And then I had to go back through and edit it several times to make it clear what was happening and, get the story across. And it was difficult every time I went through it. So yeah, that was the hardest thing for me. And I really, really, really don't want to read about fancy girls or write about them anymore. Although I have a feeling I'll never really get away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and even as that chapter comes to a close, there's some other
there's plenty
things.
of other women being exploited. Yeah. That we'll be covering.
We'll get to.
Yep.
All right.
What about you, Greg?
So on that note,
on that note, so for me, and maybe even some of you listening have put this together about me. Josh CL, you definitely know this. I am in a constant state of semi-panic attack over many of the scripts that we've written, that we've done, because I don't only obsess about getting my facts straight. That is absolutely crucial to me. And I mean, it kills me to acknowledge as a human being, right? Something's going to slip here and there. I see it in peer-reviewed books. For crying out loud.
All the time.
Yeah, constantly. We've caught them writing episodes. Mm-hmm. So when we get to more sensitive topics, though, I mean, the two of you know, I've sent you drafts of a script multiple times. Not that the facts change, and I will never shy away from just acknowledging what facts are. I think both of you know one of my absolute favorite quotes, John Adams: "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence." But, and look, I'm not looking to dump on my own profession here. Preface. Something that I think historians can sometimes not be as good at is recognizing that tone does matter. That I never want to talk down to somebody. That it is not easy to entertain the idea that perhaps good, well-intentioned people might have led you astray on understanding some facet of American history, or something about, your whatever subgroup's history,
right,
and so forth. So you both know that I have felt tortured as we've handled other things in the past. I feel great about how we've gotten through them. I'm glad to see that pretty much reflected, I think, in emails and comments from listeners, that they can see the great efforts gone to represent multiple views and so on. But I recognize through this volume and into the next volume that I really don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not that fight being the Civil War and its remembrance. I think growing up in the Western United States, well, you both did too, we're a little less attached to it than our Eastern, not just Southern, but even up into the North, brothers and sisters, if you will. Yeah. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. We don't have monuments here and
we don't drive past battle sites or
no. I mean, if I try to remember the number of times I even saw a Confederate flag growing up, I don't know if I have a memory of it. I mean, I'm sure there was one somewhere. Maybe I didn't know it, but all I'm trying to say is I definitely don't have a dog in the fight, which hopefully helps in terms of being, not biased, being very objective. But I'm very cognizant that this is a war that left wounds in the United States that have not yet healed. And if there's one thing that I think we could do a bit better in the present as historians, is rather than, and I'm not saying all historians do this, but sometimes we strike a visceral tone in wanting to really get across those facts.
Prove a point, right?
Yeah, and I'm all about the facts, and we're going to be so upfront and clear with that. I hope that I am, as I fuss and writhe over these words, not that I am comparing myself to to this man in terms of greatness accomplished and whatnot, but kind of like Ciel, as we discussed Lincoln's debating how to deliver that
inaugural address.
That inaugural address, exactly. Right? I mean, the language matters. And so all I'm trying to say in this far too long monologue now is that I want to do, first and foremost, justice to truth and facts, because that's always,
the priority.
That's always the priority. And I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I hate doing that. But that will come, as it always has, top tier. But I do hope that as we go through this, everyone's going to see that as we've gone through, let me say, this last volume. And as we go into this next volume, I hope that we succeed at delivering that same, even as we acknowledge absolutely upfront what the facts are, that we succeed at showing the different sides and facets and views across, geographical bounds, north, south, across social levels, and that they're not even, that those aren't even the only boundaries, right? It's not like there's a northern perspective and a southern perspective. Northerners have different views, different southerners have different views. Yeah. So, that's the thing I lost sleep over in this volume, and I know I'm just going to lose more sleep over it in this next volume.
For sure.
No question.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to give a shout out to, once again, our buddy Steven in Pennsylvania. He recommended a great book, or at least I think it's a great book. Honestly, I'm going to start reading it here this next week. It's Confederates in the Attic.
Right. Yeah, we've both picked up copies. So.
Yep. Yeah. Which I hope will help me, have more perspectives.
Yeah.
Because that's what I understand. The book does a great job.
Yeah. Understand every side.
So that's it for me. I'll just be sweating that as we go to the next volume too.
Sweating that as we hit the Civil War.
Yeah. Because here we go. So let's go ahead and call it a day. And thanks as always for listening, everyone. Really, it's a blast seeing how many of you are listening at this point. We are into the 5 digits on subscribers. So thank you, really, from the bottom of our hearts. And of course, a special thanks to our patrons. So I'll go ahead and
close like you always close.
Yeah, I'll do the usual here. So History That Doesn't Suck is supported by fans at patreon.com/History That Doesn't Suck. Josh, Ciel, and I are beyond grateful to you kind souls providing funding to help us keep going. Thank you. And a special thanks to our patrons whose monthly gift puts them at producer status. Will Caldwell, Jason Karstens, Dex Jones, and Sheila Palatnik. And with that, join me in 2 weeks where I'd like to tell you a story.